Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight at our meeting. My name is Roseanne Hassett. I am the Executive Director for the American Civil Defense Association, also known as TACDA. Tonight, we are pleased to have Jay Whimpey as our presenter. Jay is the current president of TACDA and also the president of the Civil Defense Volunteers of Utah. He is a licensed chemical engineer with a vast amount of knowledge and experience in civil defense and teaching preparedness skills. Jay will be teaching us about the importance of sanitation in a disaster by showing us how to make a simple portable bucket toilet for emergency use. Jay's presentation will go about 20 to 30 minutes, and afterwards he'll be happy to take questions. If you have a question during the presentation, feel free to use the chat feature, and we will try to get to them either during or after the presentation. Before we begin, I am obligated to read a short disclaimer that nothing in this presentation should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The opinions of our viewers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of TACDA. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. And with that, Jay, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. It is very, well, sanitation tends to be forgotten. It's not a very glamorous subject, but it's absolutely necessary. In a long-term power outage, the normal sewer plants that would normally take our waste are not there. Septic tanks would continue to function. We'd have to supply them with water and such, but I think it would be a useful alternative to build a simple bucket toilet. The 5-gallon bucket is really great. Very sturdy, totally waterproof when it's in good shape. And I know I've seen sanitation, this topic covered where you're using plastic bags and such, but a bucket is so much more durable that I think using 5-gallon buckets to contain the waste is great. The idea is that we just want to build a little piece of furniture that allows you to use a bucket to take care of human waste, as we do right now with a toilet, something that's relatively sturdy and durable. So I happened to run onto a person who used a bucket toilet on a fairly regular basis for a family of 6, and he had a lot of good tips, and he said it was perfectly satisfactory. I have a few suggestions along that line, but we can talk about that as we go through. He mentioned that and urine is actually supposed to be relatively pure, and it's not biologically active, but it actually makes a good fertilizer. And a bucket toilet can actually last a lot. Well, the individual buckets fill up a lot less frequently if we can divert the urine to some other, divert it to use on used as a fertilizer. It can simply be mixed with a little bit of water and applied to grass or shrubs or about anything, and it doesn't tend to cause a problem. The biggest problem is the solid waste, and that can be filled with all sorts of disease and causing organisms, and it tends to attract pests, or they're called vectors, that tend to get on that waste and maybe transport some of the material somewhere else where you don't want it. And so it's very important to keep that waste taken, keep it sequestered and you can also get some viable use out of it. The material breaks down relatively quickly and composts very well, and it can be, at least this person was applying it to his vegetable garden, and it was doing very well. In order to in order to control the vectors of the material coming out of the bucket toilet, he would apply it to or put it in a compost pile and make sure it was covered with grass or leaves, just to keep the vectors away from it. I might point out that um, this material is coming out in the next issue of the Journal of Civil Defense, including the drawings and such. So please feel free to make use of that. And we thought these drawings might be helpful for you to construct your own toilet, but feel free to modify and do whatever you, uh, well, build whatever kind of a cabinet you want that can support a 5-gallon bucket directly under a toilet seat. I can show you um, well, let me see. Guess we can start talking about an alternative. Are you seeing that? Okay, uh, Roseanne?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, all right. And let me see. I can do that large screen. Anyway, this is a luggable loo type toilet. It's great for camping and great for portability. However, I've heard from some people that have used them quite a bit. The toilet seat doesn't hold up over a long period of times. It tends to crack, and then overall, it's a little well a lot more tipsy, I guess, and can be a little bit harder to use than something that's a little bit more substantial. So I'll uh, but it's perfectly acceptable. The guts of it are the same. It's a um just a little plastic seat that snaps onto a bucket, and it has a lid that goes down to keep the uh, vectors and vectors away and the smell somewhat contained. It's important to use something to absorb the moisture, some organic matter, and so I'm suggesting that when you're using a bucket toilet, that you use some sort of wood shavings and such. It is a little bit different. Can you see this okay? Oops, let me see. Um, some wood shavings are better than others. This is a very fine wood shaving, tends to
Put it
absorb
right,
moisture very well.
put it right in front of your face. I think then there we go. A little
There.
bit more.
Anyway, yeah, this is very fine material. Um, we use it for bedding horses, and it really absorbs the urine and the moisture from the solid waste. And if you look closely to something like this, which is the heated the heating type pellet fuel made out of pine, and if you look at the little pellets, they are made up of very finely ground wood as well. So as soon as this material gets exposed to a little bit of moisture, those pellets break down, they absorb moisture, and they do a very good job. And they're really easy and not messy to handle, not a lot of dust, perhaps, as the regular wood shavings that tend to be a little bit dusty that I showed you just before. There are some there we go. Anyway, some wood shavings that actually are a little bit larger particles. Really doesn't want to. But anyway, larger chips, it makes good bedding for a hamster or something like that, but it's not all that satisfactory for absorbing more moisture from human waste. So anyway, you just have to be a little bit judicious, but essentially all of the pellets will work as the absorbent in your bucket toilet. Um, the the best solution, or what I would recommend, I guess, is something like this. I'll do it. Oops. Whoops, sorry. Something like this piece of furniture. Um, just a sturdy little wooden box that with a toilet seat mounted on top and and a bucket put in, and I'll show you the guts of that pretty soon. But you can see this would be very satisfactory as far as being stable and for both young and old that might tend to have trouble with a toilet with just a little plastic snap-on seat. This particular cabinet was it doesn't have to have a lot of pieces. I happen to have a friend that has a computerized cutting table that he can put a full 4x8 sheet of plywood on, and he arranged the pieces and the cutout to where he could actually make one of these toilets from a half a sheet of 4x8 plywood. It comes in different thicknesses. I would recommend something along the lines of 3/4 inch thick plywood. I know they come in different thicknesses. We use the higher grade plywood that comes with a continuous sheet of some hardwood on the outside. It's a fair amount more expensive, but it actually works very well, resists moisture, and is a lot more attractive. As you can see, it's not too bad there. The hardest part is cutting the holes. His computer machine doesn't or didn't have any problems with the holes. It's very precise and very quickly, and it was also able to cut out these little joints. And the way it goes together is the the hole, or excuse me, this sheet with the hole that holds the bucket actually fits into these little what do you call them, channels or whatever, that we're cutting the wood. And so the thing fits together nice and tight, and it makes it very sturdy if you can put it together like that. And so this sheet is held in by those little routed channels, as well as the screws that you would put into it. Um, all of the buckets um, are remarkably the same. I made it a point to go get buckets from several different sources, and they all fit just fine. So I didn't find one that wouldn't work. I wanted to point out, oops, the um, the bucket fits down into this into this little piece of furniture. There's room for the handle of the bucket to lay down, and then there's just a lid that comes over the top. Right here, I guess you can see the lid that comes down, and the toilet seat mounts on top. You do have to have a hinged piece so you can lift this lid up and extract and replace the bucket. This happens to have a twister lid on top of the bucket, and if you're going to use one of those, you have to allow for that, but they don't take up a lot of space, so it's basically the diameter of the bucket. And then the toilet seat mounts on top of that lid. There's a small section there where it can be hinged, and it's just a regular commercial toilet seat that's fastened to the top of this sheet, and that supports all the weight and keeps it centered up appropriately. The So that really talks about, or as what I can say about the piece of furniture itself. It was well, with having the pieces cut out like that for me, it was very easy to put together. Takes less than 10 minutes. And I asked him about maybe supplying other people, and he said he could do a few, but he didn't want to go into business on selling these kits. But it was very handy. As you can see, this is not an elongated bowl, I guess, but the dimensions of the bucket and the dimensions of the toilet seat are very Similar. The toilet seat is just a little bit smaller, and so it's like a match made in heaven. These bucket toilets are really useful and go together nice, and buckets are relatively inexpensive, and so you can have multiple buckets for containing the waste. The individual that I visited with that had that used uh, these bucket toilets for many years, said that with a family of 8 individuals, they would be pretty close to a full bucket every day. So that was kind of you are adding some of the other the moisture absorbent uh, cellulose material, otherwise known as wood, in there. But he mentioned that to start the toilet or start the bucket toilet, you really only needed to put in a couple of handfuls of the pellets. And then each time the toilet was used, a couple more handfuls can be applied just to start absorbing the moisture from the waste immediately, and uh, and that kept the smell down. I asked him about the smell, and he and I thought a twister lid might be really handy, but he said it was used often enough, and the material, the pellets were added on a regular enough basis. You could just put the toilet seat down, and he didn't seem to think that it was that big of a problem with an objectionable smell for using a bucket toilet like this. He did say that on a regular basis they could take the bucket out, um, put it in a compost pile, put some of the more composted material on top, and he said if you came back a few weeks later, you wouldn't really recognize the any um, any human feces, and it was all turning back to pretty good compost that could be used for his garden. And he chose to do that. There are some concerns with um, human diseases, perpetuating human diseases, but and in as I mentioned before, if you're composting human waste from the material that is produced by large sewer plants that are already receiving industrial waste, that might be um, definitely more of a concern. But he felt like that he was handling the compost properly to where it could be it would take care of all the disease-causing organisms, and he wasn't adding any industrial chemicals, and therefore he thought it could be safe to use in his vegetable and flower gardens. He did mention that he probably composts the material um, essentially for a year before it would be put on the garden, so it did have a good long time to break down. Um, I'm not sure too if there's too much more to say about this. Is there anyone or anyone that has a question at this time, or have you seen any questions come up, Roseanne?
Actually, I was wondering if you would show us the drawing again,
Oh, okay.
and if you have anything you'd like to say about that, maybe some special instructions or where to start. We just,
Okay.
yeah, minimize that window and probably your drawing will come back up.
Yeah. I'm
Or
I'm
just go down to the
trying.
Adobe button
Yeah.
on the bottom.
My pictures aren't oh shoot. They're not minimizing. Well, here, let me
There you
I'll
go.
just press
Yep.
on that again. Um any well, the individual that actually did these drawings, I think we used the overall idea from the Humanure Handbook, although he's a pretty clever guy, and he did a design for manufacturability, I guess, where there are actually fewer pieces, but where he can cut a circle very easily. He can router those little grooves in the wood, and he can make single pieces like this. And he worked it around on the computer again, where you could fit, or you could make one toilet out of a half a sheet of plywood, so you could actually get two of these little toilet 5-gallon toilet stands for out of one sheet of plywood.
Mhm.
Um, any questions about the dimensions in that? It is remarkable how similar the 5-gallon buckets are. You can see, just one hole that has to be a little bit larger, 6.25 inch um, radius for the top that the bucket has to poke through, and then just 5 3/8 inches that catches the bucket at the lowest ring on the bucket. And that dimension was also very, very similar for the or the buckets, so it would catch them all on the ring. There were, let me see, I'm trying to think here. There were two little pieces that he cut, or some little blocks that were just about, it was roughly 3/4 of an inch, and I don't see them on here. Anyway, so uh, in on the inside piece, he would actually put some little pieces of wood about 3/4 of an inch high to actually support the bucket a little bit above. And I'm not quite sure why that happened, but it made it an even, 4 inches down here. Um, but the bucket needed to have a couple of or a few little pieces of wood cut that were screwed or glued uh, on the top of this ring in order to hold the bucket at the proper height. So you could make this, put your bucket in, and then just add a few little spacers to keep it the right height in the toilet, to where it's just right flush with that top lid of the piece of furniture.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Any
I
other?
saw those two little pieces of wood. I was wondering what those were for.
Yeah. He's able to cut curves as easy as straight lines, and so he just cut them, cut some little curved pieces. You only had to put two screws in them. They were about 6 inches long, and you just put them along each side, and it worked very well that way. That was the only real, um, I would say, tricky thing about this little piece of furniture.
Does anybody have any questions about the drawings? Feel free to type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I do have a question. You said that he might uh, provide a very few of these. I am in my 80s without a lot of equipment. Could I order a couple from him? And how much would he charge me for that?
I can, if you want to email me directly, or you could email Roseanne at info@tacda.org, and with your contact information, and I can help you with that. I know the pieces of plywood that he's buying right now are probably in the $70 to $80 range. So the price of just the wood for those would be in the $40 range. And I could see him maybe being able to maybe $100 in the processing, and then there may be a fair, a little bit of shipping in there. It's kind of heavy, but it can be fairly compact with all the once you get all the pieces just lying flat. It's actually a fairly compact package.
I
Where
have
where do
plenty
you
of
live?
buckets. I have plenty of buckets,
Yeah,
so that wouldn't have to be included.
yeah.
And
The
I'm in
buckets and the toilet seats can be found about anywhere.
Manta, Utah.
Oh, Manti. Okay. Well, so you're not too far out of the way. Yeah, let me see what we can do. This I found it very valuable, and so I can see how that would help you out quite a bit.
I would really appreciate it if you could
Oh,
get back to me. So I will email info@tacda.org.
Yep. And we can get in touch with you, and I'll check with the individual, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So there's another question. Will the drawings be available somewhere? And yes, they are in our current Journal of Civil Defense. And I did put a link in the chat. If you just scroll up a little bit, there's a link to order that journal at $7.50. And it's just being printed right now. So it'll be, maybe a week or two before I receive it and can get it out to you. So that's how you can get the drawings. And also it will be available on the website pretty soon, where you can just get a free download as well. And that's just in the journal archive section of the website. So you just have to be logged in, and then you can have access to that journal archives area.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty little handsome piece of furniture. When when you look at it, I think he did a good job, and it could sit in the corner and not be very. Actually, this is a picture of an older version, and you can see it has separate legs, but he just he in the design for manufacturability, he just made the legs part of each one of these sides of the box, and so
So the easier.
this was a prototype, and then we improved it from that.
Someone is asking, how do you separate the solid and liquid waste? And do you need
Uh,
to?
um, the individual that used this for a long time, he said that the female members of the family had a lot harder time, but the male members of the family could easily use one of those oh, what do they call them? It's like a portable, they call it portable John or something like that. It's just a little bottle with a fairly big lid, like a 2.5 inch
Urinal,
opening
that type
with a
of
tight
thing.
sealing lid that
Mhm.
the they could separate the urine from the solid waste. And so he said that that worked fairly well for them, just having that kind of by the toilet to where you could just or let go of the urine before you uh, took care of the rest of the business.
So you can use
So
those shavings too anyway to absorb the liquid. Is that
the shavings and the pellets are available at like Home Depot and other stores like that. They're just the wood heating pellets, and a lot of people have pellet stoves in their homes. So and it's best to get the pine type pellets that are made to burn, not necessarily the hardwood pellets that are made to be used in a pellet stove for cooking food.
okay?
So just a lot of the either the farm stores or the or Home Depot, the building stores and that have the pellets, and the farm stores especially, they have the wood shavings in big bales. They usually come in about, I don't know, 30 pound bales, and they're um, several cubic feet of material that is compacted into those bags, and then but it's like something like 10 cubic feet of loose material that they advertise on the bag. So that's where those materials come from. I guess we could also point out this has two handholds on each side, which is actually below the lid, and it's made so that it's easy to pick this piece of furniture up and move it without too much trouble. And it's remarkably light. I guess it ends up weighing about, well, 30 pounds or something like that, but that's well within the capabilities of most people to lift and carry.
Someone asked, once the bucket is full, then you can just dump it on your compost. Is that what you do? You just empty the bucket and reuse it?
Yep, you can do that, and he said, or the individual use it. He said he did just use the bucket over and over, and if there's enough of the wood pellets in there, then it tends not to, have a lot of the more stinky stuff adhering to the side, so it could be reused. He did emphasize that it's important to, as you put it in your compost pile, to perhaps dig a little bit of a hole, dump the fresh stuff in, put the more seasoned stuff on top, or add grass or hay or something like that, or leaves, in order to just keep the vectors out.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is a very important subject. If you can handle your solid waste, you're much further ahead, I guess, than people who aren't really prepared. It's a little bit of can be a very messy process. We're kind of spoiled by the toilets and sewage system that we have, and this is a good alternative to keep things running normally. They say in all the wars and that there's more people that die from bad water and poor sanitation than the people that get killed by the bombs and bullets. When there's a disruption, it's an important thing to be able to do.
Super important subject. So
Mhm.
our next journal, the entire thing is dedicated to sanitation. So there's a lot of different methods that we talk about for sanitation and for staying clean, and even how to make your own soap and toothpaste, and several different composting methods are also talked about in the next journal. So I hope you can get at least the download, if not buy the journal so that you have it on hand. Any other questions?
Well, it's certainly been a pleasure. I like doing projects like this. I like making something useful, and I like having problems solved. Just to have things ready to go. So it's this is one that I ran onto that looked very uh, practical and easy, relatively easy, and so I thought it was um, worth talking about in this forum.
Thank you, Jay.
All right.
Nice to
Well,
have you
thank all of
on.
you. I appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to helping you and helping all those other people that you help. So with that, I guess we can, are all done? No more
Wrap it
questions. We
up.
can
All right.
uh, wrap it up, and thank you again. Wish you a good evening, and and good preparing, I guess. Good luck in the future.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. You can find a lot of other resources at TACDA.org, as well as the TACDA Academy that has a lot of preparedness topics on there. And if you need to get a hold of me or anyone else on the board or any of our presenters, just email me at info@tacda.org, and I'll be happy to forward that along. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one.